What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Traffish Aquatics. Today we're going to be talking about how to survive a power outage with an aquarium. Now, if you guys live in the northern climates where you get a lot of snow and wind in the winter, or if you live in the southern climates with a lot of tropical storms, hurricanes, and tornadoes, you're probably going to experience a power outage. And power outages are pretty detrimental to your aquarium because you're going to lose your filtration, you're going to lose your surface agitation, and you're losing heat because your heater is no longer functioning. So we're going to talk about how to try and prevent these things from happening. So obviously the easiest way to do it is have a generator that you can just run your house with or run your fish tanks with, or have a backup electrical power supply to do the same thing, where you can just hook that up to your aquarium, run it, and everything's going to be fine. But most people can't afford these things, so I'm going to give you guys some tips to help keep you guys and keep your aquariums safe and running through these power outages. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to keep air in the aquarium and keep the surface agitated. So let's talk about that. Alright guys, so surface agitation, that's super important in an aquarium. Surface agitation allows for gas exchange, so it's going to release CO2 and nitrogen gas and allow oxygen to be brought back into the aquarium so that your tank inhabitants can breathe, right? So it's very important to have that. So I'm going to give you guys 3 simple ways that you can keep air in your aquarium. The first one is going to be with the use of just pouring water back into the aquarium. So you can use either a cup or a pitcher or anything that'll hold water. You just scoop water out of your aquarium and dump it back in. That's going to pull air bubbles down into the water, which are going to come back up to the surface, creating surface agitation, as well as the water just being poured back into the aquarium is going to create surface agitation. So you can do that a couple times every hour or so, and that's going to agitate the surface and allow for gas exchange. So that's very easy. Everybody has something they can pour water with. The next easiest way is going to be with the use of a battery-powered air pump. So you can get one of these at Walmart or your local fish store, but Walmart, these are super cheap. You can get them in your sporting goods section. You can get them at sporting goods stores, anywhere that sells fishing equipment, they're going to have these. This one is the Baby Bubble. I got this at Walmart. It was like $4. It runs off of AA batteries. Pop it open here, and it's a very simple motor hooked up to a little air pump. So when you turn it on, it just operates that little valve and pumps air. So those 2 AA batteries will last about 12 hours. So you can run an air stone, and it comes with everything you see here. It comes with the pump, the hose, a lead weight, and an air stone. Usually I just upgrade the air stone to a heavier one so I don't run the lead weight, but it was just to show you guys an example. So you can have one of those. And the last way that I'm going to show you is very effective. It lasts a long time, and a lot of people are going to look at me like I'm nuts, right? So the last method is hydrogen peroxide. Now, I know what you're thinking. You don't normally want to put that in your aquarium, but you can actually use hydrogen peroxide to treat algae. You can use up to 3 milliliters in an aquarium per gallon to maximum to treat algae. Normally when I treat blackbeard algae, I use hydrogen peroxide at 1 milliliter per gallon, and it works very well. For aerating an aquarium, you want to use half of a milliliter per gallon, right? So half a milliliter per gallon, you dose that in an aquarium, and as long as your aquarium is not overstocked, it will break down into water and oxygen, and it will actually aerate and add oxygen to your aquarium for up to 12 hours. So it does work very well for aerating an aquarium. You can either use a dosing spoon or a dosing syringe or something like that, and you just add it to your aquarium every once in a while, and that's going to keep the air in your aquarium or the oxygen in your aquarium so that your fish and tank inhabitants can breathe. So those are 3 very simple ways to keep air in your aquarium. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is keeping heat inside of your aquarium. So keeping heat in your aquarium is extremely important, especially if you live in a cold climate and your tank temperatures will drop rapidly. So there are a couple methods of adding heat to your aquarium, but I'm going to teach you the one that I like to use, and it does work very well. If you have a lot of aquariums, this is going to take a little bit of work, and you're going to have these materials on hand before the power goes out. So make sure you buy these things and have them on hand. So the first thing that we're going to need is going to be hand warmers. Now this pack of hand warmers, I believe there are 6 hand warmers in here. and it cost me $1, right? So these are going to be relatively cheap, and I believe they last 10 hours, right? So you're going to need a bunch of these. And how they work is when you rip them open, I'll go ahead and open one up while we're talking here. When you rip them open, there is a chemical reaction that causes them to heat up. So basically, you've got your little packet here. The oxygen and air is going to pass through this packet, mix with the chemical composition that's inside, and it's going to generate heat. Now these get up to 135 degrees, so it's not going to get super, super hot, but it is going to be allowing heat transfer through your aquarium. So how these are going to work is you're going to tape them on to the outside of your aquarium. So how these work, since the air passes through this section, you want to just tape the edges, right? So you use some tape. I use packing tape because that tends to hold up a little bit better. You put some over the edges here and you tape these onto your aquarium. And you tape them on the front and the sides, right? Just a couple of them. And they don't take very long to heat up. This has only been open for maybe 30 seconds and it's already starting to get warm. So you open those up and you tape them all over your aquarium. That way the heat is coming off of those and radiating into the water, so it's going to heat the water up. After that, once you've applied all of your hand warmers, you're going to take a Mylar blanket. If you're not familiar with a Mylar blanket, they are, if you look at this picture here, a safety blanket, a survival blanket, if you will, that basically looks like a giant sheet of aluminum foil. I have one right here, right? So you're going to open that up and you're going to put it over your aquarium, right? All the way over, covering up the tank, the filter, your heat packs, right? And you're going to then take the tape and tape it around the bottom of the aquarium so that all of the heat that's being generated by those heat packs is going to stay inside of the Mylar blanket, and any heat that is getting dissipated out from your aquarium is going to be kept inside of that blanket as well to try and preserve as much of that heat as possible so that way your aquarium stays warm. Now after that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use a quilt. So this is a big quilt that we have laying around. You take a quilt and you lay it over top of your Mylar, which is going to provide an additional layer of heat protection so that the heat doesn't dissipate that much. Generally, this works very well. I've had aquariums that I've put these heat packs on with the Mylar blanket and the quilt, and it's kept those tanks warm for multiple days. You are going to have to change out the hot packs every once in a while, but for the most part, it does a really good job of keeping the heat in. Now, personally, this is probably going to have to be paired up with the Air Stone, with the battery-powered air pack, because you're not going to have access to the top of the tank if you need to use this. So very important to make sure you have all of this stuff on hand. I keep it all in a little tote bin just under my aquariums. You keep the air, the heat, all those supplies in this under the aquarium. That way you're not running around looking for all these things. When the power does go out, you just go to your tank, pull it out, and you have everything right here. So that's how you keep the heat in. So the next thing we need to talk about is your filtration. If you have sponge filters, like I'm running in my fish room, your battery-powered air pump, you can actually hook that right up to your sponge filter and keep your sponge filter working through the entire power outage, and you're pretty much going to be good to go, right? And this is also why I recommend sponge filters, because if the power does go out, it's very easy to keep your bacterial colonies alive just with a small battery-powered air pump. So very easy to keep your bacteria alive, very easy to keep your filtration going. Even if you just supplement your main filtration, whether it be a canister or a hang-on back with a sponge filter, it's really a good idea to have that in there. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is canister and hang-on back filters. So it's not so much a problem with hang-on back filters unless your power's out for a very long time. But it is a problem, especially with canisters, is bacterial die-off. So if your power goes out, let's say for 3 days, right? Even 2 days is pushing it. Your bacteria needs to stay wet and have access to oxygen in order to survive. If it doesn't have that, it is going to die off. And when bacteria dies off, it creates ammonia, right? So you can imagine in a canister having no flow through it, that oxygen in that water is going to be depleted over time. The bacteria is going to die off, and it's going to have a lot of ammonia buildup. And then when your power kicks back on, you're basically going to dump all of that ammonia back into your aquarium. So you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be a sudden change, a sudden spike in ammonia, and you could lose a lot of fish. So one thing to keep in mind is if your power is out for a long time, just be mindful, unplug your canister filter. When that power comes back on, do some filter maintenance, and then you can set it back up and make sure you check your ammonia parameters while your tank is running again to make sure that you're not going to get a spike. You're probably going to get a bacterial bloom because you're going to have experienced some die-off in your filter. And the same thing goes for hang-on backs. They're going to have a little bit more access to oxygen, but you're still probably going to experience some die-off. So be very mindful of that when you have a power outage, that you could have ammonia spikes after you start everything back up. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Just keep an eye on your heat, oxygenation, and filtration, and you should be fine and able to survive with your aquarium through a power outage. Like I said, just keep all your stuff in a little tray under the aquarium. You can have your tools for oxygenating your water, your tools for heating your aquarium, as well as your tools for keeping your filtration going. Just put it in a little tray like this. Make sure you keep extra batteries on hand, because those are always important if you have your battery-powered air pumps. So just keep that under your tank and you should be good to go. So as always, thank you guys for watching Traffish Aquatics. Links, as always, in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next video.